Well, no. Alright, let's hop right in. I think this product is super, super cool, and I think it's really great. I know a lot of professionals use it too, but as someone who's not professionally trained, just like an at-home DIYer, I also am super into this concept. Basically, you buy this system and it comes with these pre-made gel extensions. So they're actually made of gel, but they're already done for you. And basically you get these like special things, I don't know, to attach them, and supposedly, and I've heard really good things about it, supposedly it's basically a much, much quicker, easier way to get gel extensions. I love gel extensions. I've been using polygel and I like it, but it does take a lot of time, and I'm not a professional, I'm not trained in any way, and I'm having a lot of trouble getting the shaping down. So long story short, I thought this would be a really cool way for me to be able to cut down on some of that time and some of that need to know-how of shaping and get really good results. However, I just am not going to spend $100 on that, unfortunately. So, and here's what this video is about. I'm using polygel that I actually already own, but you can get this whole set, this whole system for 20 bucks with everything you need from Yayoge, or a bunch of other options. Polygel sets can be very affordable. And then these clear, full cover Makartt tips. I'm choosing long coffin because that's the type I want, but you can get tips like this in any shape. But you do need the full cover ones. And essentially I'm gonna try, and I think succeed, to make my own DIY, much cheaper version of the Aprés GelX extension kit that might not be the same quality as the $100 version, but is gonna get the job done for me. So I hope this video is helpful for other people in similar positions who want a set like this, but maybe not for $100. Alright, so I've already been yakking for 2 minutes, and I've talked about my prep many times before. I'm not going to be doing anything super different here, so I'm going to try and go through this quickly. If you want a little more in-depth how I prep my nails for really any sort of enhancement, you can click on the link to the video in the top right-hand corner where I go through it in a little more detail. But basically, I'm going to start with my natural nails. They're pretty short, just because I keep them short. I'm going to file them down a little bit just to make them even, and then push back my cuticles. Next, just to make sure all of the dead cuticle skin is off my nails, I'm going to go in very gently with this glass cuticle pusher tool and take some of that off. Alright, now here's the part that everyone freaks out about with any sort of gel, but yes, I'm going to super, super lightly buff my natural nail. And when I say buff, I'm using this nail file that is so, so, so old. Like, there is barely any grit left to it. I'm just gonna very lightly rough up the nail bed a tiny, tiny bit. The reason for this is it just helps the product stick a lot better. It just sort of gives it something to stick to. But yeah, it's not great for your nails, especially if you already have naturally thin nails like me, but it just really helps the product stay on better. And personally, I'd rather do a little bit of not so good thing to my nail to prep it so that I have a less of a chance of the gel or polygel or whatever lifting, potentially even ripping all the way off and taking a big chunk of my nail with it in a very uncontrolled way versus buffing them in a very controlled way. Alright, now that I'm done with all that, do not skip this step. I'm taking an alcohol wipe and I'm just gonna wipe off my nail bed. Not only will this get rid of all the dust that I just shaved off from my cuticles and a little bit on my nail plate itself, but it also removes all the natural oils that can keep the product from sticking. So definitely don't skip this step. You can also use a little bit of acetone too if you prefer. And then here's my bag of nail tips that I mentioned earlier. Here are the tips organized neatly in their little bags by size. And then I'm just gonna go through and size them, make sure I have every size set out. It'll just make my life easier if I do that now. I'm getting pretty lucky with these and they fit my nails pretty much perfectly once I get the right size, but if you find that you're in between sizes on any of your nails, you can always file the sides of the larger size to get it to fit your nail perfectly. I do want to quickly rave about these tips a little bit. This is my first time using them and I really like them. They don't bend at all. They're much more sturdy than other fake nail type things I've used in the past, so I really like that. And I really like the sculpted tip shape with the C-curve in there as well. But yeah, back to my natural nails. I'm going to go in with this Yayoge base coat just because it's with the polygel system I'm using. Now I had to kind of be a little creative and whip out my striping tape here, so bear with me. But basically you want to buff the inside of the tip. Again, buffing sort of helps the gel stick, so you want to buff the inside of the tip, but I want to preserve the clarity of it, so I only really want to buff the part that's going to eventually be going over my natural nail. So I just measured it out on my hand, and I'm going to take a little bit of striping tape. It doesn't have to be striping tape, you could really use whatever you want, but just something to mark off exactly where that line is, where it's the end of your natural nail. And I'm just going to place that striping tape right there, so in a minute when I go in and file the inside of the tip, I'll be able to know exactly where to stop. Alright, so this drugstore e-file that you saw make an appearance in one of my other videos is actually really coming in handy here. Since the inside of the nail is so curved, there's really no real way to get like a normal hand file inside of it. So this is really useful. I'm using this bit here on the edge of this e-file to just sort of rough up the inside like that. Now, I don't want to say you need this because like I know e-files and like it was for me, that can kind of be scary territory, but this one costs $10 and you can find it like at any CVS, Walmart, whatever you want. You could also use a glass cuticle pusher like this one, but I'm just finding it's not doing as good of a job and definitely would take a lot more time. So I do recommend getting that e-file. It would be the same if you were using the actual Aprés GelX system. You're supposed to buff the inside of it. So I do recommend that. One time I accidentally forgot to do this on one of my sets, and everything was falling off all the time. So I really, really recommend this step. I know it might mean an extra purchase, but I think it's worth it. Alright, I've got my slip solution, also from Yayoge, and I'm going to put it in this little silicone cup. And then I've got my Makartt brush and picker, which looks like this. This is the spatula end, and then this is the brush end. The polygel set from Yayoge also comes with a brush. I just like this one a little bit better. There's nothing wrong with the one from the Yayoge set. But yeah, here's my polygel here. I'm using clear. And basically, I'm just gonna take a little bit out with this spatula. And then I'm gonna put it into the nail tip, almost like you would with a dual form, if you've ever used polygel with dual forms before, except I'm only gonna put a pretty thin layer in the part that's been roughed up, so the part that will go on my natural nail. And I'm just gonna pat that into place with this brush, which I did dip in the slip solution. And now again, not unlike a dual form, I'm gonna place this onto my nail by pushing down the cuticle edge first and then very gently letting the product sort of fill in as I push it out towards the tip of the nail, just like you would with polygel. Don't be afraid to push down too hard and let some of the polygel squish out, because then you can just go to the back very gently with your brush tool. Sorry, I did a bad job filming this, but you can just take that product out. So you have this glob here. I can just make sure it's all filled in there, but then pull the rest of it out. And then being careful not to mess up my other nails in the process, I will continue and do the same thing for each nail. Then once that's done, I will cure for a minute on each side and then go in and just fix up the shape a little bit. And by that I mostly mean just taking off that little tab at the tip. I don't know if you can really see that, but a lot of fake nails will sort of have that little tab, so I'm just gently taking them off with my glass file. And that's pretty much all there is to it. I like to go in with my nail oil, cuticle oil. And then what I really want to see is if I can use a peel-off base coat over these, because that's what I've been doing with my polygel, and that saved me from having to take the whole nail off every time I want to change my nail polish, which recently has been like once a day. So I'm going with that peel-off base coat real quick. And then a gel base coat, which I'll cure. And then we'll just go with this Makartt polish here. And a gel top coat. And now just watch this beautiful success occur. It works great. I've loved wearing these tips for all of my manicures and just life in general. They last really well and I think hold up looking really good for at least 2 weeks. I've also really enjoyed doing a few manicures that take advantage of the clear tip, like this one here. I used some glitter polish and some Holo glitter to create a really cool gradient over the clear tip. So yeah, possibilities endless, and it works really well and is pretty darn easy to do if I say so myself. Sad day does of course come that you will have to remove them. Again, like I said, they probably last about 2 weeks before the tips stop looking so good, and if you're like me, they'll end up looking something like this because you would use your peel off base coat and maybe don't always get every corner. But yeah, so to take them off, I just sort of chop off the tips like this with a nail clipper or even just scissors if that's all you have. And then I'll usually try and buff off as much as I reasonably can. The tip part will soak off pretty well, but I like to get it started with a buffer if I can. And then I usually just put some 100% acetone in a metal bowl and just let my fingers soak. And you can let the rest of the tip part pretty much just melt away in the acetone. It kind of gets a little gross, so be prepared for that, but eventually it'll come off. And then polygel, especially this one, doesn't tend to soak off in acetone, which actually works to your advantage because you don't want to be taking all of it off every time. It's just not great for your nails. So then I'll go back in when I just have polygel left and buff it down pretty much as thin as I can get it up until the natural nail. Remember not to buff all the way to your natural nail because that's not good for it, especially with a rougher file like this. And now you can probably see I do have a fair amount of lifting on this nail here. You can kind of see that white edge. I'm going to try and get up all of that lifted area. There are a lot of reasons that I won't go over here that you don't want to leave any lifted product on your nail. The main one is just you'll create an air pocket which can just fester with bacteria, and that's not cute. So I'm going to take all of that up. I'll even clip some of it off because I can see it's really lifted here, but remember not to like rip any of it off your nail. And once you've taken off the bulk and gotten rid of anything that's lifted, you can just start back at the beginning and start putting on your base coat on any of your nail bed, and then put the polygel on top of that with the nail tips. Again, it's totally okay, and actually as far as your nail health goes, preferable to leave on any polygel that's still in good shape. So you're mostly just changing out the tips and repairing any lifted areas. So that's the way I recreated what I think of the benefits of the Aprés GelX system with much less expensive products in a way that works really well, in my opinion. So I hope this video was helpful for anyone else in that position that I was in. If I missed anything or if you have any questions, of course, please leave me a comment. And yeah, thanks so much for watching as always. Don't forget to give this video a like if it was helpful and subscribe if you want to see more. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.